Hello everybody, welcome back. In my last recording, I introduced you to Python. We did some simple math, some simple variables, integer and float, which are numeric, and string variables. In this recording, I'm going to introduce you to a new type of variable called a Boolean variable. And a Boolean variable doesn't have a number or an integer in it or a float number. It doesn't have a string. What it has is whether something is true or false. True or false. That's what's in a Boolean variable. And we're going to need that when we do tests. We're going to do a test on whether something is true or false. And depending on the answer on that question of whether something is true or false, we're going to decide whether we do something or something else. And that's going to be a structure, programming structure or programming path that we're going to take depending on the answer. So that's how important these Boolean variables are, because we're always making decisions with a computer. The computer is always making decisions for us. Okay, so I'm going to create a new program. It's going to be a Python program. And let's see, as soon as it comes up, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce you very briefly to this true and false concept. That's all. So as soon as this comes up right here, I'm going to create my cells. I don't know why it's taking a little longer, my computer. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I have a new Jupyter notebook. And the first thing I'm going to do is, it's by default it's called untitled. I'm going to change that and I'm going to call it CEIS110, just like I called it last time. This is going to be my lesson 2 now. And I'm going to call it Boolean variables. And I'm going to go ahead and rename it. There it is. This is the name of my file now. And on my first cell, I'm going to change it to Markdown to do that for documentation. And this time I'm going to call it, in my document, I'm going to just put a title on top called CEIS Module 2, Boolean variables, my name, and the date. So I run that. That's just for documentation. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to test something in whether that something is true or false. So the answer is going to be a Boolean answer. So it's how about 2 smaller than 1? Let me ask you this. Is 2 smaller than 1? Just answer true or false. Is 2 smaller than 1? I say no, 2 is larger than 1. So what is the answer when I ask, is 2 smaller than 1? Well, the answer is false. 2 is not smaller than 1. That's false to say that 2 is smaller than 1. So let's run this statement using Python. And Python right away checks, oh, it's testing me. It's testing me, it's a Boolean type of test. It's testing whether 2 is smaller than 1. So the answer is false. That is my first Boolean test. And this is the Boolean value. The value is false. So let's do another one. Let's do the opposite. Let's test whether 2 is larger than 1. So let me ask you this. Is 2 larger than 1? So the answer is true. Yeah, that's true. 2 is larger than 1. So let's see what Python says. True. 2 is larger than 1. So the next thing is what we're going to do is, the trick here is, that is a value of that can be kept, that we can preserve inside a variable. So let's take it again, this same test, but this time, instead of just typing it right away, showing the result, I'm going to assign a value. And the value that I'm going to assign to A is a variable. I just made it up, right? It can be, you can call it foo, you can call it anything you want. I just chose the letter A as the name of my variable. And that variable A is going to have a value. What value will it have? The value that results from the test of whether 2 is smaller than 1. Now we did it above, and we know that the test of 2 smaller than 1 is false. So I'm going to assign that result, which we know it's going to be false. We're going to assign that result to the variable a. So I ran it. We don't see anything because all it did is assign a result to a. So I'm going to create myself another line right here, and I'm just going to type the letter a and run it, and it says false. The value inside a is false. If you prefer, since we did this in the last recording, I'm going to say print a, which is basically going to do the same thing. So if I say print a, I print what's inside a, and that's false, which I can get just by typing a. Because I'm using a nice Jupyter notebook, I can do things just like this, very quickly, very nicely. So now let's do, just like I assigned the result of whether 2 is smaller than 1 to variable a, I'm going to assign to another variable, this time I'm going to call it b, I'm going to assign the result of whether 2 is larger than 1. So when we tested that 2 larger than 1, we found out that it is true. So that result, which is a Boolean true-false type of result, I'm going to assign it to variable b. So run that. I don't see anything happening because all it did is just assign the value of whether 2 is larger than 1, which is true, to variable b. So variable b has that answer. So let's go to the next line, and I'm just going to type b like I did for a before, and I'm going to run it, and it says true. So what's inside b right now? Inside b is the value of a Boolean. It's a Boolean value. B is a Boolean variable that has the value true in it. And just like I did before, just for show, I'm going to say print b, right? And when I say print b, I get the same thing. I get true. So that's what I wanted to show you. A is a variable, b is a variable. Those are Boolean variables because they have a Boolean value inside them. And I know that because when I look at the value inside a, I get false, which is a Boolean value. The Boolean values are either true or false. I'm going to need this when I do the if statements, for example. And when we do that, we're going to expand what we just described as Boolean variables. We're going to do something more. We're going to construct more tests. And but for now, I just wanted to get you. I want to get you this concept of a Boolean variable. All right? Then I'll talk to you later. Take care.